God doesn't have anything that says you can't live with your parents. Right? Like there's nowhere in the Quran that says you can't live with your parents. But it does say you have to pray.
You texting this shorty after 12, it's all shaitan, bro.
I would say even before that.
Before
bro.
that, if Maqlib is in and you texting her, astaghfirullah, brother. What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 71 of the Thoughtful Banter podcast. I'm your host, Matthew, with my co-host, Hussein.
Yes, sir.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First and foremost, let's begin this in God's name because, you know, today's topic is not just us talking about like Jujutsu Kaisen or whatever, right? We're talking about a very, very serious topic here. That is marriage. And I know people like to make memes about this, but this topic will always be serious for the Ummah as it is something that's serious for us in our religion. It's not ever going to be non-important for us, right? So marriage is important. Marriage is always going to be a struggle because it's just a difficult topic. We're going to give a quick introduction to the topic itself. But first and foremost, I want to say that the purpose of this episode is to give concrete tools for young men who can maybe use these tools to get married faster or get ready for marriage faster, right? I can't guarantee you getting married faster, but maybe I can get you ready for marriage faster, inshallah, right? Because ultimately, marriage is a form of risk, and you can try your best, but Allah will determine when you get married. The intro I want to give here is that there's this issue that we kind of went over at Camp Arafah, not us, but it kind of was discussed in Camp Arafah, and I'm sure Hussein might have some words on it, but it's this issue of prolonged boyhood. Now, I don't think this is a scientific term, but how I would describe prolonged boyhood is essentially it's the prolonging the period of us not giving adult responsibilities to men. Yeah, you know,
it's not just men; it's everyone. It's women and men.
Right.
But this episode specifically is going to be kind of tailored to the male perspective. We're both dudes. Right. That's one. Two, I mean, you said this is not like a scientific or like maybe formal word or phrase for the phenomenon you're talking about, but people have talked about this before. Even like back in the day, Jordan Peterson was talking about like the infantilization of men. Right. Like, so this is a topic that has been discussed and is being discussed in these fields. So don't like sell yourself short is all I'm saying. Well,
then I'll say this is very scientific, right? The prolonged boyhood. And, you know, I guess people are going to get, you know, some people might get triggered hearing this. Maybe you need to get triggered. In short, prolonged boyhood is, you know, there is being a boy and then there's being a man. And if we look at just the typical American right now, right? And I'm throwing generalizations out here, but let's just use generalizations for the sake of this discussion, right? If you generally look around American society right now, there's plenty of people in their late 20s, early 30s, even mid 30s who aren't ready to get married. You know, if you ask them why they're not married, why haven't they settled down? They don't know what they want to do in life yet. They just don't feel ready for marriage. They're not ready to take on that responsibility. They still don't know who they are yet. They sound like children, right? Compare that same 30-year-old, let's say, to their grandparents or maybe their great-grandparents. It's very likely that one of their grandparents, at least one of their grandparents, had their first child when they were still a teenager. Maybe got married in their early 20s. Or maybe grandma and grandpa got married at 18. Mm-hmm. So it's a kind of a more of a recent phenomenon.
I mean, even like the term high school sweetheart.
Yeah.
Like that was a term for a reason. It wasn't just like the person that you dated in high school. So
That's right.
It's the person you dated you started dating or courting in high school and then ended up marrying.
That's right. Yeah.
Right?
This is a very common phenomenon that's like, I think up until recent history, people now are just overwhelmed by options. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I know you guys have probably heard of like this, you know, other podcasts been going over like how this is interestingly enough, we're the most sexualized generation, but we are the most sexless generation. People are having less sex than ever before, but everyone's aware of sex. So something's wrong here, right? And I don't want to go too deep into it, but I think I would define it basically by we have adults who aren't adulting. All right. Do you have any words on it?
No, I mean, I think you kind of summarized that portion of it up. Prolonged boyhood, infantilization of men. Yeah. Again, like what Matthew said. And then I like on this infantilization or prolonged boyhood thing, although I think it affects everyone, I do think there is a point that I think it's affected men worse, like the worst of all. So yeah, I mean, again, I think Matthew pretty much introed the topic pretty well, so I have nothing to add there. continue.
All right.
So hold on. Let's just take a step back because we talked about a lot of different things. Again, this is kind of trying to lay out a template for someone who's listening to prepare for marriage. I remember myself, and Matthew probably remembers too, because it was around the same time when I was actually seriously trying to get married. I was probably around like 7, or I thought I was trying to get married, whatever. I was around 17. And then what my mother did is she sat me down and then gave me a roadmap, like complete these things. Some of it was material, some of it was spiritual, and that was like a really good template for me. So basically what we're trying to do is kind of recreate that here and keep you guys aware of some of the things you should be looking out for as well. So yeah, I guess if you just want to continue down the path.
Right. Yeah. So this is definitely supposed to be like, we want you guys to watch this episode and go away with somewhat of a game plan or understanding for you to maybe get more mature so you can be ready for marriage faster, because we have to tackle this problem of prolonged boyhood. And that's a great segue, because the reason why prolonged boyhood is a problem for marriage is because for a man to be married, Islamically, really the bottom line of being a husband is that you're a wali, right? So being a wali really means you are the guardian of somebody, right? So before you marry a woman, her father, right, if he's in her life, is her wali. That means her guardian. So he's responsible for her spiritually and physically. Whenever you marry this young lady, whenever you marry this lady, you are now her wali. Her dad isn't her wali anymore. You know, that's your responsibility. You have to take care of her. And you can't be a provider. You can't be a guardian unless you're also mature. Hussein, do you want to maybe give us an Islamic definition what wali is as well? Did I not?
You pretty much covered it. Yeah, you pretty much covered it.
Okay. So what does it mean to be like this guardian? You know, so again, it's not just a physical thing, right? Like being a wali isn't just putting shelter. It's not limited to, although it does include, you know, shelter. It does include, you know, sustenance. It does include, you know, food. It includes the physical elements of life, right? Transportation, all these different things. You know, like we know one of the most common rights of a woman is she should be sustained to the level that her father sustained her at, right? So if she was given, you know, and it's not actually black and white. It's not just like, oh, most people aren't just like, oh, my dad gave me $250 a month to spend, but it's more like our family, we go out to eat this much, and I maybe get clothes this often, and I get to travel like this.
Yeah.
It's a type B, right? You know, but it's also the spiritual aspects of things, right? So it's like the spiritual state of the household. So you are responsible. If you have to set up the home in a way where it's like you're responsible for the spiritual state. So are you and your wife making salat? Are you and your wife connecting to Allah? Are you two doing your wajibat? Are you protecting not just yourself, but your wife from haram, right? Like you're responsible for each other spiritually. And I think that's way more of a burden than physical, because anyone can just maybe get some money, you know, but it's like, no, we're not going to go to this place. We're not going to hang out with these people. We're not even going to watch this TV show maybe, right? Responsible for like the spiritual wayfaring of the home, right? I mean, maybe you can give an example of this.
I don't have an example off the top of my head, but I think basically what you said is dead on the money. And I just like, so I kind of want to lay some groundwork before we get into this discussion. I saw one really good video about this, and I heard something at camp that I also thought was amazing that I kind of want to put here. One, it was a triangle, right? And I think you've seen this. So the triangle, Allah is at the top, and then on both bottom sides of the triangle, there's husband, wife, or whatever. And basically the idea is that, you know, when you're a couple, the closer you move towards God. So if you guys are at the bottom of the triangle, let me show you. If you guys are at the bottom of the triangle here, right, the closer you move to God at the top, the closer you guys are also getting in proximity.
That's crazy. That goes hard.
But outside of the husband and wife scenario, it also works when you're a bachelor and a bachelorette.
We'll get back to this episode, but first I want to tell you guys about Patreon. For just $5 a month, you can be part of a loyal group of supporters who keep this podcast running. The money we get from Patreon allows us to buy camera equipment, buy microphone equipment, and allows us to keep doing this podcast. For joining our Patreon, you get access to exclusive content that only gets shown there. If you want to know more, click the link down below or visit patreon.com/thoughtful banter. And back to this episode.
As in, if you're at the bottom of the triangle, meaning you're the furthest distance from God, and you don't pray, you don't fast, you don't make time for these things, you haven't picked up the Quran in like 5 years, like you don't do any of these things, and then the bachelor, so that's the bachelor at the bottom, and the bachelor is like halfway up, and this guy is like pretty consistent with his prayer, he's working towards getting better, he reads the Quran every now and then, but he's slowly like moving that way up, like moving up that pathway to God. People who are looking to get married also have to be realistic about where they are themselves.
Facts.
And that kind of goes into like step one of this process, which is taking account of yourself. Don't want the wife or don't want the husband that you yourself are not at the level of or ready for.
That's right.
And
that's a great segue to step number one.
Yeah. And the way I heard it, this is just like the theory kind of framework part that I heard that I thought was brilliant, was in the Quran, there's like obviously distinctions made between man and female, right? الذكر ليس كالأنثى, right? The male is not like the female. Mm-hmm. So there's a separation, male and female. So dhakar is like just you are a male. You are a human male existing. Okay? And then there is a difference in how dhakar are spoken of versus how rijal or rajul, which is men or man, are spoken of in the Quran. So there's a distinction, right? And these are, the way it was kind of presented is like these are levels. So when the Quran says ar-rijal qawamuna ala nisa, men are the protectors of women, right? Is it talking about a male, or is it talking about the person who fulfills that role as a man? And then on top of that, there's fata, and you've heard the hadith, I'm sure. La fata illa Ali, la sayf illa dhul fiqar, la sayf illa dhul fiqar, right? Like there's no man like Ali, and there's no sword like dhul fiqar. So fata is like that top of the pyramid. Rajul is like you've embodied the traits of a man. And then dhakar is just you're a dude.
So it's like one's just like you're biologically, which is this boyhood, like you're physically, But then there's embodying the traits that Allah is describing as the man who, in the context of a woman, is the protector of woman. Yeah. A boy is not the protector of woman. A man is. Exactly. SubhanAllah.
Exactly.
I love that.
That's not my point, by the way. I completely stole that.
Let's get to this list we came up here. Obviously, this is just a template. This isn't Sahih. This isn't Quran. This is just me thinking, right? Like us two in our conversations. Like, but maybe this is good. I think this is honestly like, not to toot my own horn, but I think this is a good place to start if you have nothing truly, right? The first step, take account for yourself, right? This is just basically like about to start anything in life, right? Take account for yourself. Really look at yourself and where you are in every area in life. What are your flaws? Look at your strengths. This isn't the time to be hard on yourself. This is just a time to just take account, right? Like how, like, am I overweight? Not good or bad, just am I overweight? Yes or no? How overweight am I? As an example, right? How am I with my salat? Okay, where am I financially? Am I living with my parents? All right, am I able to move out soon? Am I living alone? Every area of your life, spiritually, mentally, physically, financially, take account of everything of yourself and just ask yourself, like, what are your strengths as a person? Where are you right now, like in your spiritual journey? What are your weaknesses? Like, what are you still struggling with? Like, how's your willpower? Right? What are you struggling with? Just like where you're at. Like, do you think you're which ways do you need to mature? Which ways do you think you can actually provide in a relationship? Like, what are your strengths? Sorry. On the checklist. A good example of this is like, ask yourself, like, just what are you capable of doing at this moment in time? And again, it's not about judgment. It's just about just taking a realistic look of like, where are you now? And the second step, once you have taken account for yourself, is just to take responsibility, right? So you've laid out all the things you are. Now take responsibility for every one of those things. And that's another level, because it's one thing to say, for example, in my case, I'm overweight. But a different thing to say, I'm overweight because of my actions.
Yeah.
Like it's not about, my mama's cooking was so delicious. Like I ate this. My sleep is terrible because of me. I chose to work out this much. I chose to eat these things. I'm talking about myself here, right? Like, just take responsibility for everything.
Yeah. And even I think on this point, an important aspect of this is like, take responsibility even for those things that are not your fault but are affecting you.
But are your responsibility.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Like, there's plenty of things that it probably is not. I mean, like, most of what we inherit from our parents genetically honestly determines a lot of how we go through life, right? And is that technically our fault? Like, no, we didn't ask to be born to those parents, for example. But it doesn't really matter. I'm giving that as an example because it's just an easy one. There may be some things in your life that are happening to you that suck, or there may be some things in your life that have happened to you, and as a result, you have some kind of trauma. I mean, we just did the Alex Hormozy episode,
right?
And some of what he says on this actually makes sense, which is that, like, again, perhaps it isn't your fault. Perhaps it isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to deal with it, and
right.
You can only go so long as a functioning adult. Forget like as a man, forget like as a rajul, right? Like, as a functioning adult, you can only go so long blaming it on something else.
A good example of this is like finances, for instance, right? Like, the biggest determination of how much money you make is your zip code. Which is a crazy stat to think about. But at the end of the day, take responsibility. Like, all right, you came from a poor family, right? Or you came from a middle class family, right? Whatever it is, take responsibility. Right? Okay, yeah, this thing happened. Just take responsibility. So own up to everything, right? And again, this isn't about self-hate, but this is about awareness and accountability. Okay? I am this place right now, and I take ownership. I own this thing. I got to work on my Arabic. Okay, well, maybe I didn't get good enough Arabic classes when I was younger. All right, well, now you're an adult. So if Arabic isn't good, don't even think to yourself, it's because I didn't get these classes. It's right now I have not taken the steps to get better Arabic, period. Now that you've taken account of everything, and then inshallah you've taken responsibility for everything, you've taken ownership of everything, the next is setting up a game plan and action. So for all of these areas in your life, you have to make decisions on how you're going to live, right? Do you want to improve any of these areas? Right? Does your fitness need improvement? Right? Does your finances need improvement? Right? Okay. All these things, even the things that don't need improvement, you have to make a decision of what that area in your life is going to look like. That's why I say game plan and action, because it's like, even if you don't want to improve the thing, you have to make a decision of what it's going to look like. Because again, as a leader, like, you have to have an idea. Like, if fitness doesn't matter to you, that's fine. But don't be one of these people who are just like, I'll get to it. No, like, decide if it matters or not. Because it will come down the line, even for picking a spouse. Yeah. We have to make those kinds of decisions. Do you want to speak on the game plan and action? I think you were talking about that earlier. Your mom gave you a game plan and action. What did that look like?
I mean, it was basically sat me down, was like, hey, you want this. What are the things you need to get to do this? And this is not like, you kind of have to be careful, because the general advice is like game plan and action, but you also have to be intentional about the goals that you choose, right? And the framework that you use to choose those goals, right? Like, for example, I think it's silly to say, okay, until I make 150K, I'm not going to get married.
Very, very silly.
Yeah, like, that's a goal.
It's pretty haram too.
That's a goal, but that's just a bad goal. Like straight up, especially in this circumstance. That's not to say don't try to get your money up, right? That you should try to get your money up. That's a good thing. But to have kind of like, so there has to be kind of some parameters that you're operating within. Obviously, the ones that we suggest are going to be ideally based on Islam, right? So if you're someone who's not making your prayers, you making your prayers on time is more important than you making 80K. For example.
Oof.
Right? Or even moving out. You know? Like, this is just the reality. Like sometimes it's hard for us to kind of think of those things. But that's like, as far as like what's more important, God doesn't have anything that says you can't live with your parents. Right? Like there's nowhere in the Quran that says you can't live with your parents. But it does say you have to pray. You know? So kind of one, looking at these action plan and game plan through those lenses, and kind of it takes some rewiring, honestly, because you think like even us here, it's like, oh, okay, like, you know, you're young, you're like, okay, I want to move out, I want to have my own space, this isn't that for my wife. To do that I need to make this much money, and it's like, bro, you're not even praying. What are you doing? What are you talking about? Yeah. Make this much money, pray first. Especially if if your goal is to get a Muslim wife, like this should be a no-brainer.
That's a beautiful reminder for all of us listening, inshallah. Definitely for me, I'm like, wow, you know,
yeah.
Some of those small things be falling.
I honestly think money goals probably may not even belong on the list. You might disagree with me, but I think if you have a goal, like I think, for example, mine was like complete this much school. It was like, yeah, complete this much school or something like that, which is equally as kind of like flimsy, but there's no direct like monetary value attached to that, which I think makes it a little bit better. I think people get stuck up on these things. The reason why I say that is because people get a lot of times hooked on the number. It's like, oh, I need 60K. Oh, I need 70K. Oh, I need 80K. Oh, I need 90K. Oh, I need 100K.
When it's something you can like kind of like, it's not a number you have to hit. It's an equation. It's like really the money is to live a certain way. So can you find other creative ways to meet living standards without making that much?
But also it's like, believe in the promise of God as well, right? God says he's like the most like, he says he's the most merciful, but also he is like khairul raziqeen, like he is the best of providers. And he says that, you know, don't make this a factor in your thought process about getting married, right? Because I'm going to take care. Like that's a promise from him to us,
right? And
we need to take that seriously, which is why, even if you have like, I'm not saying having a money goal is bad. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just saying, don't make whether or not you're ready for marriage, the crux of it, or what it all relies on, be X amount of money I bring in per
Absolutely.
year.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. I think good goals. I'll mention this and I'll move on to the next point. And this is actually so funny. This was the last bit of advice I got from one of our mentors until I decided to get married. And this advice kind of really just pushed me over the edge. Like, I just got to do the thing. I was like, I'm not making enough money. And he was like, and I was talking to him and I was like complaining. I was frustrated. I was like, my job is to provide. I'm not making enough money. So like, I'm just trying to work and then save. And my mentor said, no, your job is, he cut me off. He was like very serious. He was like, oh, your job is not to provide. Your job is to work.
No, I think he said your job is not to.
No, he said your job is not. Yeah. Your job is not to make money. Your job is to try to provide. Now, trying doesn't mean trying, and like we have to also like pause here. Like trying, there's like trying. That's not really trying. Like oh, I just worked 20 hours this week. No, trying is doing your best until you can't do better. So like, if that means you can't find a job that pays you enough, that means you have to work 2 or 3 jobs until you make enough.
Or it means living with a relative or something.
Even then, it means like, all right, whatever it takes, I'm putting all my energy into this, right? But it also doesn't mean, but I guess it doesn't mean like, oh, I have to hit 10K before I can like get married. Like, you know that clip from, I think Muhammad Hablos, the sheikh, who was like, bro,
what's that, brother?
The clip where that's from, in the speech, it was actually a beautiful point he was making. He was saying, you know, we tell people everyone wants to be Muslim. We all want to be Muslim, but we say, be like the Prophet, live simply, eat on the ground, eat with our hands, live humbly. Brother, And it was like, so like to that point. Yeah. The next step, right? So you've taken accountability. You've squared away all that is you making up your life. You've taken responsibility for everything. You've made decisions on how all areas of your life are going to look like. For everything you want to change, you know needs improvement. You have an action plan, like you know what needs to happen, and you're working on that. I don't think this needs to be done, but I think you need to be in the process of working on it. Some things might need to be done. I think Salat, for example,
needs to be done.
Needs to be done because it's also like you could just pray 5 times a day right now, but that's in your control. So some things need to be done. Maybe it's like I don't need to be making enough money, but maybe you need to be at least having a job. That's fair. Step 4 is finding a spouse. Okay, what does this look like?
Just going back to, or at least a plan. At least a plan and like a well thought out plan. Yeah. But I will say if you can, the more of it that's at least in action is better than just planning, because no one believes plans. People like to see you're already doing the plan. Yeah, of course.
Now, when it comes to step 4, finding the spouse, I think the most important thing to do is to actually write down your absolute non-negotiables, like period, die on this hill. I would tell you something. I'm going to rant here, and then I'm going to let you take this point because I'm talking a bit. I was talking to a brother. I'll censor this. I'll censor this joke. But this is the real thing that happened. I'm just censoring. I was talking to a brother, and I was like, he was like, I want to get married. And I was like, or what kind of woman, like, what are you into? He was like, bro, I'm a very simple guy, bro. I just want someone with nice hijab. And I was really upset with him. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't have been like this. But I was just kind of upset with him. I started teasing him. And I was like, bro, don't tell me that. Like, be serious. And he was like, no, I'm serious. And I think he was like a little bit offended that like maybe he didn't think I was taking him seriously. And I was like, bro, it is more useful for me if you want me to look for a wife for you, that if you that you tell me you want a girl that's like 10 out of 10 good looking, or you tell me something really materialistic, like you want a girl who's like a Gymshark model, like one of these fitness girls on Instagram. That's more useful information for me, because then I can find that criteria fast. But instead you tell me you want a girl who's just modest. Like, let me tell you something. My modest and your modest might be very two different things, right? If hypothetically someone's mom doesn't wear hijab unless she's in the masjid, no one doesn't think their mom's not modest, right? And if my mom wears chador, right, all the time, then we have very two different opinions of modest. So I'm going to find you a wife that's going to be way too modest for you. And if you try to find me a wife, I'm going to be angry that you think that's modest. So find me an objective measure of like find a measure. Don't say something stupid and silly like just nice and modest. These are empty words. Be specific. Take it away.
Yeah. So that was a good point. Be specific. I mean, what Matty has here is like basically negotiate your non-negotiables. So find your non-negotiables. Don't compromise on those things. And then anything else, this is my personal advice, anything else that's outside of those non-negotiables, even if they're not up to like the standard that you'd like to have them, and perhaps this is controversial, and maybe when you're younger, you shouldn't think so much this way, but especially as you get older, the reality is you're never going to find that perfect partner.
Right.
Like that perfect partner just doesn't exist.
Right.
So settle.
I agree.
Settle.
Non-negotiable, hardcore, and hardcore. That's what you don't settle on. But but that's why the first step is important. Like,
yeah, because you have to define them.
And I mean, even if you're non-negotiable, something that's stupid to me, I say, once you settle on it. Like, I mean, really serious. And like, I think a funny example of this is like, you got to be honest. So, for example, no one likes to say they're racist. No one likes to say they're racist. But let's get our hands dirty in this topic. No one likes to say they're racist. No one will say it. But if I say, brother, you want to get married? Yeah, brother, I'm looking. Brother, what kind of woman are you interested in? Brother, wallahi, I don't care. I just want me a nice Muslim woman. I said, brother, I know like 6 black sisters who are all nice Muslim women. Brother, I'm good. Right? So it's like, brother, if you're looking for an Iranian wife, if you're looking for a Pakistani wife, make that your non-negotiable.
Yeah,
because I'm looking for you, and you got to narrow the query, bro. Mm-hmm. Because I might have 1,000 options, but you don't like any of them, and you're not being honest with yourself. You know, if you tell me if you're looking for Iranian, 1,000 might go to 100, and then we can go from there.
Yeah. Also, just I know Matthew's was like introduction to that point was like provocative, like no one wants to call themselves racist, but I think it could be for reasons other than race. So for example, it could be that the person doesn't actually have a problem marrying outside of their race, for example, but they're like, I know my parents are going to make this a headache, like this is going to be a really big thing for them, and I'd rather not.
Fair.
Like unless I'm at a point where like I'm super duper desperate, I'd rather not go through all of that trouble and just have it and just like make it easier, right? So, but the point is that that's still a non-negotiable. So that should still be
and be honest.
Yeah,
like don't make me. I mean, I am being a bit provocative, but I think no, be honest, because the problem is when people are honest, right? Like if let's say like you're like let's say you're a Pakistani sister, and you're like like race is a problem, not because of your preferences, because your parents, and you start let's say like some black brother approaches you. And you're like,
he's always black. It could be any other
because
race.
that's the one that causes the problem for everyone, bro. You know it. You know it. So let's say like a black brother approaches you.
Bases are intense, even within like their own groups. But anyways,
no, like let's say and you're like, I don't want to say, like his good and everything. Just don't lead him on. Stop it, because you're wasting your time and this brother's time.
Unless it is something that you're gonna actually like fight for, in which case. Maybe that's not your non-negotiable, but at the same time, when navigating this situation, you should also be upfront about that too. Yeah.
And it goes for other races, right? I know you said, but I'm just saying like that's the one that's like commonly across the whole Ummah. I think probably has like the biggest issue getting married.
At least in
this area. Yeah. At least, yeah. You know, right? But yeah, it goes all across everywhere, right? Just be honest. Know yourself. Know your family.
Know yourself. Know your worth.
Yeah, just stop playing games. Like we're here to be serious, and I think it should even be about dumb things, because if it matters to you, then it matters, and you can maybe change what matters to you, and if you change what matters to you, that's fine.
I mean, I think the kind of the cool part about this whole process, and I'm about to nerd out, just warning. The cool part about this whole process is it is like a marketplace. In the sense that
whoa.
Bear with me. In the sense that the marriage market will signal to you if your non-negotiables are stupid, right?
Wow, you just went really nerdy economics. I like it.
So like
if it's a free market.
So if you have a non-negotiable that's like,
that's right.
I want her to be 5'11". Like my wife has to be at least 5'11". Right?
Like you're aiming for tall woman.
tall woman, for example, and that's like absolutely non-negotiable. And then you look at it, you sit back, and you're like, okay, statistically, like how many women are there over 5'11"? Not a lot. Like statistically speaking, there are not a lot of women that are over 5'11". And say hypothetically you're like 5'6", dude. You're like, so not only are there not a lot of women who are over 5'11", the percentage of women that are over 5'11" also have husbands or partners that are taller than them, and yet you're here 5'6". And so it's like, okay, you have this non-negotiable, and you've been searching for 5 years, and you can't find anyone because your criteria is stupid. So now the marketplace has signaled to you, like, bro, change is non-negotiable because it doesn't make sense, right? So I think this is an interesting part of this. And then even when you get into like dowries and marriage and stuff like that, this becomes another kind of mechanism for filtering, which is, I don't want to get into it right now, but like it gets really deep and nerdy.
No, that's fair. That's actually, that is an interesting point. I think I
mean, vice versa for like women.
It's
right?
a bit like
I only want someone who's 6'5". Like, do you know what percentage of the male population in America is like over 6 foot? And I don't want to make a red pilly, but it can hear.
And I don't want to make a red pilly, but it can hear. because like a lot of like the red pill discussions are about like this aspect of like the I want to say but the economics of the relationship, because these guys only look at from like that one lens only, but like it's a fair thing to understand. And that's where I say like it takes like this is a mature conversation. And if you can't handle this part of the conversation, then I don't think someone's in the headspace to get married, because you really do have to take account for yourself. And it's not a market. It's not a marketplace, but I do think you need to take account for yourself. And as a thought experiment, view it as such, because like if you're struggling to get married and then you see like, you gotta see like, bro, no one's buying. Yeah. Year 2, year 3, year 4, I'm in my 30s. And it's like, your standards are way, 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 way too high for yourself. I'm sorry. Like, you got to change something.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not the case. Sometimes, like, you're just having some bad luck. But what I would still advise that person is, even if you don't think your criteria are a problem, to still go back and review them.
Right.
Because you either might learn something or see something that you didn't before, or you're like, okay, and also run it by people you trust, run it by your mentors, run it by your close friends who have experience, who are already married, preferably. Typically, you don't want single dudes' advice on this, or single people's advice in general, because they have no idea what they're talking about.
They always got the most advice.
But if you've done that check and like it's still checked all those boxes, right? Then perhaps you're just out of luck, and maybe you need to go to a new market. Maybe you've exhausted like the one in your local hometown. Maybe you need to go somewhere else.
Yeah, go somewhere else. Go to a different city. Go to a different community.
And then everything else, again, once you've done your non-negotiables, everything else settle on. If you would love someone to be an 8 out of 10 looks wise, and you find someone who matches all of what you're looking for on the non-negotiables, and they're like 7, settle. Don't be an idiot. Look at me. Settle. That goes for men and women. Settle.
Mm-hmm. Because your non-negotiables will haunt you, and they will bite you in the butt. Yeah. And I'll leave it at that. We'll go to the next step here. Now let's go to meeting woman. All right. So I don't know if you guys have noticed, every single step I've like recapped. You've taken account of yourself. You've taken responsibility for yourself. You understand what every area of your life needs to look like, or should, or looks like, and where you want it to look like, and you have a game plan of action for getting there. You have determined your non-negotiables, right? So you know what you're looking for. Now let's meet woman, right? Market, bro. So tell your parents you're looking. Tell your friends you're looking. Tell your friends' families you're looking. Everyone, tell your local mom, your scholar, you're looking. Everyone should know you're looking. You shouldn't be ashamed of it. You shouldn't be too thirsty or desperate. Like, I'm looking. Like, I want to put it on your IG story that you're looking. Yeah, right. Yeah. Don't be about it. But people should know you're looking, especially the people who are married and older around you that you trust, because those are the best people to look. For the love of God, don't tell your single friends you're looking and expect them to tell their single friends you're looking. Like, this is stupid. All right. Like, I remember when I was single, I was like talking to my single friends. Hey, bro, any girls for me, bro? If he knew, he would be married. Shut up. Your friend can't help you, bro. If you're drowning, don't go to that person drowning. Yeah. Please. You guys aren't going to swim together. This is a solo swim trip. I'm sorry. Keep it moving. Only get advice, I would say, from your single friends for the most part. Now you should be as active as possible attending places where you think there are pious, strong, beautiful, devout Muslim women, right? That's probably going to be your local masjid, your local youth centers, right? Youth programming. You should be volunteering. You should be as active as possible in those spaces where those women might attend. Now, this is where things probably get the most tricky for people. I think this is where things often get the most gray, and people make a lot of mistakes here. So I think I'm going to make my advice really simple. When you find a sister you're interested in, okay, it's not haram to talk. First of all, like, honestly, like, it isn't haram to get to know a sister, right? In like those appropriate settings, not one-on-one, in those appropriate settings. Get to know her, right? Observe how she is with her friends and with the community, because that will give you important information. But honestly, I think as soon as you think you're maybe interested in getting to know her better, let it be known. Talk to her family. talk to her family, and don't be scared, even though it will be the most nerve-wracking thing of your life.
I'd discourage young people from just going directly to the sister.
Fair.
Go through someone you trust, especially if they're local in the community. There's a good chance that someone knows them, right?
Right.
So like that's the way I'd recommend. And to Matty's point, this is sales, bro. This is sales.
This is sales. Can you sell yourself? Yeah.
And the number one
cold approach
rule in sales is keep going. So you dial one number, you get a no, call the next one. Every single no, think about it like this: every single no, you get closer to the yes.
That's right. It has to come at some point.
Yeah, and then sometimes in the no's, you actually get positive, like not positive, useful feedback from it too.
That's right.
Right? It's like no, because XYZ. Like maybe this person doesn't carry themselves that well, right? Yeah. They don't have that good of a reputation in the community. And you start learning these things about yourself. Now, sometimes you're not going to get that much feedback from it. Sometimes you get the call and it's just like, no, hang up. Like, right? You don't even get to say your script. You just hang up on. So sometimes those exist as well. But take every no you get as kind of like a learning opportunity as well. And don't hold on to this stuff.
And I want to circle back to my point real quick here. I'm purposely being vague because there's just too much specific circumstance information determining if you should talk to a girl's parents or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think you should get straight to the point as soon as possible, because as soon as you start thinking, oh, I want to first see how she feels about me first, don't even think like that. I think that's an easy way to slip into haram, number one, because then you're trying to spark emotions, right? I don't think Islamically, I just don't think we play that game. Right? It's too slippery of a slope to get into haram business. It's too slippery a slope to get into flirting and all this kind of stuff. I think it's honestly attractive for a lot of... we want to get into female psychology a little bit here. Women want you to be the one who take the risk. I think even if it's alarming and abrupt, and I'm just speaking from experience here, I rather have been the brother who out of pocketly maybe have said, hey, you're trying to get married? I'd like to talk to you about marriage. Than the brother who tried to be her friend and tried to be her guy friend and was caught lacking texting her late at night. That's stupid. That's, for one, I feel like you diminish your manhood playing this game. And I think I'd rather stand out with masculine aura and take an L than be a little snake and try to be her friend first. Yeah. I know that sounds really aggressive, be a little snake. I'm not trying to offend people here, right? Like, no one here is perfect, but I'm just saying, like, I think we've all made mistakes, right? But it's like, don't play this guy friend business. You could be like an associate. I'm not saying like don't look at women. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here? Like, help me out here. Like, I'm not saying don't look or like be like the guy. Don't be too standoffish for the sake of being halal. Like, be personable. But I'm saying it's like, oh, like let's say I like this girl like at my youth circle, right? Don't try to be friends. Be like, if try to work on a project with her, talk to her at youth circle, ask her what she's studying, crack a smile. I'm not saying, saying don't make her smile, but after youth circle, don't be like, hey, let's get some coffee. What are you doing after this? Just us two, right? Like, let's text at 1 a.m. Bro, devil hour. You texting this shorty after 12, it's all shaitan, bro.
I would say even before that.
Before that. If Maqlib is in and you texting her, astaghfirullah, brother. Right? I would say get her number. If you already have her number and you two at all text or whatever you're interested, I would just say let her know right now what you're trying to get into, which is a marriage. Okay? If she's not willing to talk to her parents about it, then she's not mature enough for marriage, period. End of story. Assalamu alaikum. Next one. Next one. Do not text the sister. Do not text the sister for later on trying to get ready for marriage, right? And then being like, oh yeah, I'll talk to my dad in 3 months, but I want to tell you that I'm anxious right now. Oh, take a deep breath right now. Brother, skip all of that. Skip all of that. All the devil. She's not ready and you're not married if you entertain it. If she's ready for a marriage, she'll talk to her parents in like a week or so. Yeah. Come on, give me some input here.
I mean, I think you kind of spat. You were cooking. I think you were cooking. I don't have anything else to say. Yeah.
I think
don't play the game.
Don't play these games. Play the game of God. And this is one of my only decent pieces of advice, I think, right? And I can't take credit for it, but I'll say it. Again, don't be scared of being weird when doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. You are going. It's only going to get harder and harder to get married. I remember when I was trying to get married, it was just weird. It was just terrible having to like be the kind of person. I think like I see like a group of like teenage girls just staring at me over there in the window. Like I'm throwing up there like staring at me. The thing of like a red pill podcaster. Bismillah. So I think it's weird. I think you might have to be weird. Might have to feel weird because I know like everyone around us is dating, and you're gonna have some friends who are dating. You're gonna have some friends who maybe are in haram relationships here and there. I will say this. Marriage is prescribed to us in the Quran, right? So I want you to tell yourself when you're in your most down bad, when you're in your most just downtrodden state and you feel terrible and you feel like I'm knocking on doors here and no one wants to buy the product, just tell yourself like, if your intentions are right, you're on God's side here. God told you to get married. Whenever any kind of uncle, whenever anyone tells you, why are you trying to get married? Just get a girlfriend. Or why are you trying to get married? Get your money up first. Or why? You're on God's side. So screw what anyone tells you if they're telling you something that's against God. Mm-hmm. I want you to know something. Your prophets got married when they were poor. The Sahaba got married when they were poor. Anyone who tries to tell you put dunya first, I want you to ignore all of their advice. I'm sorry. I want you to ignore all of it.
Yeah. Because
when I was trying to get married, I was like 17 or 18 and I wasn't ready yet. I had people telling me I should get a girlfriend. I swear. I had people telling me I should just get a girlfriend. I had people telling me don't get married yet. And yeah, I got married at 21, right? But I'm telling you this. If God wants you to have something, you're going to have something. And we're doing this for the sake of God. Because if you're not doing this for the sake of God, get a girlfriend right now. Mm. That's the non-godly route, right? But if you're doing it for the sake of God, do it. Yeah. Stop being scared. And if you're scared, you're going to be scared. Do it despite being scared. Mm-hmm. If your parents say, brothers, I'm telling you, brothers, if your parents say you're not ready for marriage yet, prove them wrong. Don't wait for your mom and dad to say you're ready for get married. You don't need to wait for your mom and dad, right? Especially as a man, you don't need your father's or your mother's approval to get married. Mm. I don't care. I don't care. You don't need their approval. You always need to respect your parents. But did you know Islamically, respecting your parents doesn't mean listening to your parents.
Doing good by your parents. Islam requires you to do good by your parents. And
parents make this so hard sometimes.
Hold on.
Yeah, sorry.
Adding on to that point.
Yeah, right.
Your obligation is to do good on your parents. Sometimes actually doing good on your parents requires you not listening to them. That's right. Yeah. It's a little counterintuitive, especially when you've been beat over the head with like, don't say oof to your parents, respect your parents. The Quran says this, God says this. And all of that is true. But sometimes we kind of misunderstand what God is actually requiring of us. And your requirement, and I'm stealing this point again, but the requirement for you to do in any sacred relationship, whether that be your parents, whether that be your brother, whether that be your sister, your grandparents, whatever, is to do right by those people.
That's right.
Yeah. And sometimes doing right by those people means upsetting them.
That's right. And sometimes that's the best thing. And if I'm an alcoholic, if I am an addict of alcohol, right, and I'm only pleased with you as my friend, if you go to the liquor store and buy me some liquor, and I hate you and I curse you whenever you don't buy me liquor, God is going to be rewarding you as my brother to not be indulging me in that addiction. Even if I hate you and I say, Hussein, I hate you, I don't ever want to see your face again, you've done me a favor.
You can make that same exact analogy for your parents.
That's right.
It
gets ugly because I'll be dead honest. A lot of parents out here are straight up abusing this idea. We just put in their kids' heads, disobeying me, God hates. That's not necessarily the case. If you're always on the side of God, yeah. But a lot of times these parents aren't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being blunt. Yeah,
it's that simple.
Yeah.
I don't know what you want from these kids. So like, and I'm sorry, I muted this.
I mean, this can also go for like women as well. Like if you really feel like there is somebody, there's a brother you've been speaking to out there, and you initially had the permission of your parents, and then they revoke it for some stupid reason, right? But you really feel that this person is like hits all your non-negotiables and some, right? It oftentimes is worth upsetting your parents and fighting for that relationship to last anyways.
That's right.
Yeah. And I know like you talk about like the guardianship that your father has over you and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. There are instances, this is not a permanent guardianship. And the same thing goes for a husband. This is not a permanent guardianship that you get once and then you have a hold of it and you never lose it. This is conditional, right? Then the condition is that you're fulfilling your responsibilities, right? So you have these rights and you have these corresponding responsibilities. And if you're the wali of this person, you're the father of this woman, and you know that it's in her best interest, and yet you still refrain from allowing the marriage to happen, you are stripped of those rights, at least for that moment, right? So yeah, keep that stuff in mind, even for the sisters out there.
Oh, a lot of people are gonna be mad at you. You're spitting, and it's like, listen, we're gonna circle back here. Why are we doing this? We're doing this for the sake of God. Okay, if I'm not going to get married, especially when you and sometimes listen, if you got to going back to the first thing, take an account for yourself. There's a certain point where we get to where we understand as men, mostly this only applies to men, for young men. You get to a point where you realize marriage is wajib for yourself. Brother, if marriage is wajib for yourself, who is anyone to tell you, mom or dad, you can't get married? I'm being dead serious. Who are they? Like, we have to stop putting parents over God. Like, we find ourselves in these positions where it's like, oh, don't say oof to your parents. God overrides everything, right? So like a lot of young brothers like, oh, I can't. I'm sorry. Like your dad, ask your dad how he got married. 9 times out of 10, your dad was poorer than you are right now. 9 times out of 10, your dad was in the motherland in Pakistan or Iran or somewhere, not without shoes on, and got married to your mama, and he was like a bread maker or something really basic, and he made things work. Like we have to have an overhaul of values. Now, we actually have another point here, which is like a way smaller point. And this is attractiveness advice. Right? Who am I to give attractiveness advice? I will say
you cute pook.
People like this is like part of like the red pillness and just like I guess the obsession over the physical realm, I guess, that we're in today nowadays with social media and whatnot. The red pill guys just focus on this one thing, and like people who focus on this behavior are just really weird and silly. Like I don't know if you've seen the incel community. There's entire memes and like they have these reasons why they're incels and they only blame objective measures. Meanwhile, there's like overweight bald men who are married.
Yeah, with whole families.
Like some people we know, I don't know who are married, like myself. And I just want to break it out really simply, right? Like what does Islam talk about when it talks about attractiveness, right? What is the actual sunnah about being attractive? It's very simple. Be healthy, groom yourself, smell good, be clean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I again, I don't want
to
not mewing, not mogging,
right? Be healthy. Okay, like there's always a health, yes, obviously, but yeah, be healthy, right? Smell good and be clean and groom yourself. These are the things the Prophet talked about. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to make it because we're talking about like the non-negotiables and stuff and settling. Of course, you have to be physically attracted to the person that you're going to eventually end up marrying. That's right. And that's an important part. Like, not even like that's a very important part. But what I'm saying is, if there's wiggle room in that criteria, say if you love a 9 or you love a 10, but you're still attracted to someone who's a 6.5 or a 7. That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
So I just want to make that like specific. I'm not saying like, if she's a 1 or he's a 1 or a 2 to you, you have to settle for him.
Right.
But I mean, even then, it kind of depends on what kind of place you're in. But like potentially, there could be, points where you still should settle for that person. But most people aren't living in that kind of scenario. So that's what I mean. Just giving clarity to that point. And then, like Matty said, this is really not too simple. Be healthy, groom yourself, smell good, be clean. You're good.
And last point. I know. This is a good exercise for everyone listening to this go through, right? So we're gonna end this with a nice exercise, inshallah, and we'll be done. Okay. Bismillah. So the exercise is as follows. For all of your non-negotiables, write them down. Okay. So let's say she has to be very physically fit. Okay. Let's say she has to know Quran really well, because of course she has to know Quran well, right? For example, let's say that she has to, I don't know, give me a third example of saying physically fit, know Quran well. Give me a third example.
Praise on time.
Praise on time. Okay. You have these 3 categories, right? In all these categories, you want her to be what out of 10? Let's say a 10 out of 10 for all these categories, right? So 10 plus 10 plus 10 equals 30. All right. For these 3 categories, flip it and look at yourself. Okay. 1 out of 10, what would you rate yourself? Mm-hmm. Brother, are you a 6?
Okay, hold on. Male? Straight up attractiveness?
No, I see. It's different for man and woman.
Yeah.
We will never be like woman.
Yeah.
Unless we're Prophet Yusuf. But yeah. Like he was just the most beautiful person ever. Right.
No, what I mean is like,
it matters less to women.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm just saying, like on average, for your own metrics, because a lot of these brothers are single, supposedly because they can't find a beautiful enough woman. Brother, lower the bar. You're not that cute yourself. Women also want a beautiful face to look at. You're not him.
Or
beautiful
like
body to look
whatever
at.
that can kind of compensate for that. Be at that relative level of their beauty or higher.
Let's call it as be richer.
It's not just I mean,
but fair.
That's a big part of it, but it's not just that, and it also depends on like this type of woman you're going after, right?
But let's go through the exercise, right? This is the purpose of the exercise, just self-awareness, right? So go through the categories. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you with your salat? Are you a 6 or an 8? Now, on every category you've ranked yourself, right? So let's say you have 3 categories. You want your wife to be a 10 out of 10 in all these categories. And you're in total, so it adds up to 30 points. And you're in total, let's say like a 22 out of 30, right? You need to either be okay with someone who's actually a 22 out of 30. So make this a math equation. So 22 over 30, or you need to become a 30 out of 30. Right? Make sense? This is a good exercise. 70%? Huh? Don't ask me, bro.
73%.
Just be honest with yourself. All right. If you're not willing to lower the bar to where you're at, then raise the bar for yourself. All right. And if you've been trying to get married for a bit and you're not there, you're lying to yourself. Like, you need to stop talking to your mom who's saying you're so beautiful, so handsome. Because my mama always told me I'm handsome. Sometimes I purposely make myself look bad. I ask myself, Mom, do I look good? And she's like, you're so beautiful, Mahdi. You're such a handsome young boy. Yeah, that's my mom talking. Yeah. But my boys might see me from a mile away, be like, you got a big back. I'm like, whoa. That's a crazy thing to tell me.
Big back.
You used to have a big back. But yeah, that just might be what it is. But anyways, I know you guys are tired of hearing me yap and Hussein yap. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Thoughtful Banter podcast. I pray, inshallah, it's been beneficial for you. Let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. Share this to your single friend. Share this to yourself if you're single. Look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, what am I messing up here? And we'll see you guys later, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.